Hi everybody, this is Nathan Bray. Welcome to your TorFX daily market update. It's the start of a new week. We're heading into the 15th of February. First thing I want to have a look at to get an idea of just what's going to be coming up this week is let's just have a look at the news, and we'll start on the macro and then we'll narrow it down sort of pair by pair, currency by currency. I want to have a look at sort of three big ones. I want to focus on the Aussie. I want to have a look at the pound and the euro. Okay, but first of all, looking at the macro, we've got some news coming out this week. A couple of big things are occurring. Remember today, Monday, obviously it's a bank holiday in the US, so we're probably expecting it to be a little bit quiet. Other things that are coming up is Tuesday. Okay, so Tuesday, 12 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard, we've got President Draghi. Okay, sounds like Dracula, but he's going to be coming out and giving us an idea from the European Central Bank as to whether maybe there's going to be any more of this quantitative easing coming out of Europe. Maybe that will help prop up the US stock markets, who knows? But it certainly is something I think we'll be looking at as far as the macro view goes. Then, of course, later in the week, pretty sure it's Thursday, there you go. So Thursday, early in the morning, our time, the Federal Open Market Committee, their meeting minutes are going to come out. So that will be the other big one, I think, that the market's going to look at on the macro. Okay, what are they going to say? Are they going to follow up with Janet Yellen maybe giving us an idea that the US economy is actually starting to weaken a fair bit? Maybe they're going to blame it on countries overseas like China, as they like to do, and suggest that maybe these rate hikes aren't going to almost be taken off the table. So that's a maybe. But I think it's something that the market on a big scale is going to have a look at. Why am I so excited about that? Well, let's just jump in and let's have a look at the other big chart I think we've got to start off by looking at. What I'm looking at here is the what they call the DXY, or basically it's the US dollar index. So it's the US dollar against a whole basket of other currencies, but heavily weighted towards the euro. You can see here it's getting absolutely smashed. Okay, so over the last sort of week and a half, this US dollar has sold off, quite dramatically. If you look at it from its most recent move up, okay, it's at about a 68% retracement. So for the Fibonacci lovers, this is the spot where you would probably expect to see a bounce. You've got a high probability of that. But it has been a huge sell-off. The reason I'm pointing this out is because with so much US dollar weakness, Janet Yellen also starting to tell the truth about the state of the US economy, and maybe these rate hikes might be a little bit one and done. We've got to have a look and say, with all this US dollar weakness, how has that affected the Aussie dollar, the pound, and of course the euro? And I think that's the telling tale here that we need to concentrate on. So let's just jump in, and we'll start on the Aussie. So let's start with the Aussie. I know that's something that we're pretty interested in, and let's just see here. You can see the Aussie here. I'm looking at an Aussie US dollar on the daily, and you can see here it's putting in these higher bottoms. So it was in quite a strong uptrend, which makes sense. Why? Because that US dollar index was very, very weak. Okay. However, over the last sort of week, or maybe even longer, maybe about 10 days here, while the US dollar index has been very weak, you'll notice the Aussie's gone into what we call a consolidation period. Okay. It's got resistance up here at around 71.39.5. And of course, down here, this previous resistance, you can see this previous resistance here is actually now starting to become support. A couple of hammers here where it's tried to break this support level but failed. So we're basically in what we call a consolidation pattern between these two levels. So I'm looking for trading opportunities, reversing off resistance or holding down here as support if I get a setup. The interesting thing there is that the Aussie is obviously, you can see the weakness because the US dollar index was very, very strong on the downside, and the Aussie hasn't really been taking advantage of that. So that's something we've got to have a look at. And of course, there is a bit of Aussie news, which we'll go and have a look at coming out this week. It's a real unemployment data kind of week for the rest of the currencies around the world. There's a bit of retail as well. All right, so let's just zoom in on this so we can see it a little better. Here it is here. So what we're going to be looking for is price to come up and see if it fails up at resistance. Of course, if it comes down and holds its support. As far as maybe putting orders in for clients, etc., I would be looking for limit orders up around this region, and I would look at maybe putting in your stops definitely underneath this support down around today's projected low. Okay, give it a bit of room to move, because there's obviously, because it is in an uptrend consolidating, you've got a higher probability of actually getting their limit orders for them. But just be careful where you're actually putting in your stops. I'd be putting it down here around today's projected low, or even maybe a fraction lower. Now, let's check out for the rest of the week. What are we looking at? Well, you can see here it's been very sideways. Trading opportunities, this is a trade that I did earlier in the week. Okay, so you can see here, price comes down, it breaks the trend line, which I had in here. Trend line break right on the central pivot, right at support. Okay, trend line break, MACD cross, change of direction is what it's telling me. It's in a place I want to be a buyer. Same thing up here, we had a failure up at resistance. Okay, at a place I want to be a seller, high probability, and we got a change of direction. Unfortunately, the change of direction was too much risk. It was about 50 pips of risk, not a trade I wanted to take, even though it did work. But however, it was also failing down towards the central pivot, okay, which it bounces off. So probability-wise, I'm looking for failures up here at resistance, holds down here at support, change of direction with a risk appetite of around 20 pips. And of course, you could look to trade that up to the other side. News is the only other thing that I'm looking at that can really affect us. The other thing while we're here is, the reason I like this trade is because you can see here, price actually went down and broke the support level. We had a big breakdown and a massive, the buyers jumped in. Okay, the buyers are obviously pulling their orders down because it was a strong move down, okay, through this news item. And of course, a big reversal. Wait for it to come back down and hold at your support level. Don't be just jumping in as soon as it moves above there. You want to see the buyers come in, put in the higher bottom, lift their orders up, and of course that is your ideal trading opportunity. Okay, news-wise, I think is the thing we've got to look at. What could potentially break it either way? My feeling is, because the US dollar was very, very weak and the Aussie hasn't taken advantage of it, it has had quite a daily rally where if it breaks through the bottom here, okay, and holds underneath there, we could be looking at this Aussie moving back a lot lower. Okay, so they're the technical sort of wrap. So let's just jump in now and have a look at the news that's coming out. So we do have a bit of news which could affect the Aussie this week. So I'm just going to, first of all, we do have a bit of Asian news coming out. So the China's got their trade balance coming out, but it's all pretty much factoring in around expectation. I think the only thing that's going to affect us on Monday is if that is a really bad trade balance. Okay, that could affect the Aussie. So keep an eye on that support level. The other thing is we've got our monetary policy meeting minutes coming out on the Aussie as well. If there's any surprises there, we might obviously see some volatility. So keep an eye on that. And of course, later in the week, I believe it's Thursday, we've got our employment change and our unemployment rate. It's all predicted pretty much to stay on par, but it certainly is something that could provide some volatility. So in the meantime, if we don't get a sudden move below that support level, what I'd be looking at is trading this range. So just trading off major resistance and of course down at support. Let's move on now and have a look at the pound. The pound, look at that. It's a very similar type scenario. We've seen the pound bounce off a major level of support. Now, I just want to start with that before we go looking at this range. It's very range bound as well. Okay, so let's start by looking at, I'm going to take you to the big screen here. Let's have a look at the monthly. Okay, have a look at this monthly chart here. So on the monthly, you can see what's going on. You can see price was very, very weak on the pound for a number of months. It's come all the way down to this major level where we're starting to see it hold, where the buyers are looking to buy. Why the hell is that? So I'm just going to grab this line and stick it down on this level here. So this is where I got in to buy it once I got a hold. It sort of bounced around there for a few days. But it's really cheap for the pound. So I'm just going to hit the minus button here so we can have a look. You'll see here 2010. Look at that. That's where it was plummeting down, very similar like it is now, still in this same range. So if you look at top of the range to the bottom of the range, this is a huge range that this pound's been trading in for a long time. So it is a place where it's seen as cheap by the market. We then move across to, say, 2009 is where it found support as well. Obviously, this momentum pushed it through, but they were all false breaks on the monthly. You come all the way back here to 2001 and 1993, okay, where there was a bit of bond market crisis, etc. But look at those. That is where the price of the pound is seen as very, very cheap. And that's where we are right now. So regardless of the news events coming out, I just think the market really dictates what goes on over these news announcements. And down here is a place where it's seen as very, very cheap. Okay, so I'm just going to get rid of this major support level. And let's just go and have a look at it on the daily. So when we have a look at it on the daily, you can see here through this area, it is at the moment had an upward trend off that major monthly support level, which I just showed you. It's now consolidating. Okay, so it's just going a bit sideways. It's a bit rangy, as they call it. So let's just dive in and have a look at the 15-minute. It's a very similar type scenario. Look at that. Today's projected high, today's projected low. Okay, top and bottom of the range. Exactly the same thing I'm looking for on the pound at the moment. I'm just looking for failures and setups, that trendline break, MACD cross, okay, and obviously failure at resistance and today's projected high. This would be the ultimate place for me to get into a sell trade, or if clients are looking to get a better price, I think you're going to find it's going to run into some pretty serious daily resistance up there. And of course, down here for your stop, I would be going underneath this support level. So let me just adjust that for a second. You see what I mean? I want it below 144.08. Okay, I'd give it a bit of room. You can see over here, if you start putting in stop levels, you'd almost want to go below this previous low here. Yeah. All right, so range bound, looking for failures at resistance, buys at support. The only other thing is we do have a little bit of news coming out on the pound, so let's just jump in and have a quick look at that. So looking at the pound this week, I think it's a similar type scenario. I'm just going to move all the way down here to Friday. They've got their core CPI coming out on Friday evening, so we've got plenty of time through to there. However, as we move up earlier in the week, so in a few days' time, all right, you've got their average earnings index that's coming out, and of course the big one, which will be this Claymont count change. All right, so and their unemployment rate, as I said, it's a bit of like what I call the unemployment week. Okay, you've got plenty of this data coming out, like on the Aussie and now on the pound. So later in the week, Wednesday. So I'm not expecting any major news event. Their CPI comes out sort of Tuesday night, but to start the week off with the US bank holiday, I'd just be looking at trading off those tops and bottoms. And of course, just keep an eye as we're going to have some data come out on the CPI. But look, I've looked at the previous months, etc. It's nothing too dramatic expected there. All right, but there obviously will be volatility at that time, so I wouldn't be trading around that time. All right, let's now go finish off and have a look at the euro. So if we start just on this euro dollar here, you'll see this euro dollar has been trending down. Okay, it's had a big move up and it's now sitting at support. It's all about whether it's going to hold this support. So let's have a look at the daily. Strong uptrend. How different is this euro compared to the Aussie where it's consolidated? This is in a strong uptrend. So it's really all about, is it going to hold at this level? We're seeing massive moves up, higher tops and bottoms. So what are we looking for? We're looking for this resistance here where I've got the black line becoming support. At the moment, it seems to be holding. If it doesn't hold and it fails underneath it, all right, we could be looking at consolidation or even a correction, okay, on the euro. So this is a critical point that it's at. And for me, I'd be looking at it and saying, let's have a look at the 15-minute. If I can get a trade set up here early on Monday morning, or probably more likely in the afternoon, Monday morning being for Europe, so about sort of 5 o'clock in the afternoon. If I could get it to hold here and change direction, so if I could get a similar type scenario has been pointing out where I'm sort of looking at already we've got this trend line break. That's not the greatest trend line I've ever drawn. But if it comes back down and tests and holds, you can see it's putting in higher bottoms here. So the buyers are actually willing to raise their price here and the sellers aren't hitting it too hard. So if it holds here, it's support. If the buying support remains there, this trend is continuing and the trend is your friend and it's a high probability trade that it's going to continue higher. So that will be a trade that I'll definitely look at. The big thing I'm going to look at just before we go is I want to check out what's going on with the stock market. For me, I know we've looked at US dollar indexes, etc., but I think what it all comes down to is if you have a look, I'm going to take you to the German monthly. This is a really classic example of weakness that we're now seeing in the stock market. This is the European German top 30, right? So you can see here we've had a big move up. Obviously, price has failed. The sellers have come in. It's had a dramatic pullback. It's found support month after month after month, in line with where there was previously a lot of monthly support here, right? Then it goes back up, it rallies, and it puts in a lower top. It's now broken this monthly level on the downside, and it's held down there. That is really, really weak. That is, for me, that is the start of a longer move down. It's called a failure swing, and it looks really, really ugly. Lower tops, taking out the previous major bottom, that is really, really weak. Now, let's have a look at the Dow, because the Dow looks like it's at that point where it's make or break. Make or break for starting of probably a strong bear market. Look at this, very similar. We've got this big move up. Okay, we have this failure, comes down, finds monthly support, very similar to that US 30, right? Oh, sorry, the German 30. And it's just hit smack bang into it this month. If it breaks this, that is the start of a strong bear market, okay? That is a high probability strong bear market there. So all eyes, I think, at the moment, regardless of the US dollar index, is really on this. And if for all you Fibonacci lovers, you'll notice we're looking at a monthly, obviously, on the Dow. It rallied all the way back up to 79% retracement before plummeting. Okay, these are two massive moves down, two big moves, August and, of course, January this year, 10% off the highs. Both times, huge moves. That close together only ever happened in 2001, 87 crash, 2008. Okay, those types of times where you have these huge corrections within a few months of each other only happens followed by really bad market conditions. So that will be the other thing that I'll be keeping a really close eye on. Okay, how will that affect the US dollar and therefore the Aussie pound and euro? Well, if it's a huge sell-off in that US market, what are you left with? You're left with US dollars. US dollars obviously will actually make it go stronger. Okay, people are suggesting that's occurring in the yen at the moment. Big sell-off from the Nikkei. What are you left with? Yen. So the yen has been strengthening. They're trying everything at the moment to weaken their currencies by lowering interest rates to negative. Janet Yellen even talked about the idea of negative interest rates. So I think it's going to be a really interesting week. I'm going to be keeping a very heavy eye on this US 30, and we'll be having to look to see if we get some kind of bounce in that index. It's at a classic level where you'd think there'd be some kind of rally. So therefore, I'm trading the ranges. So just to finish off here, let's go back and have a look at these ranges that we're in. And, you know, based on that evidence, you'd be thinking we're going to be range bound or possibly even moving back down, having another move down on the Aussie, okay? But that euro just looks really, really strong. So that's all from me. Hope you have a great week, and we'll talk again soon.